Well, it's about time that I treat a few things in the garden with some good fertilizer. So about every 2 weeks I'm dousing the corn with fish fertilizer. I really should do my carrots. I'm going to treat the strawbale that's weaker with blood meal and fish fertilizer. And I think that's it. Oh, and I'm going to be feeding my onions again today. So just filling up a few 5-gallon barrels. Not much. A couple tablespoons, 2-3 tablespoons worth of fish fertilizer. So it really lasts a long time. I remember when I first bought it, I bought 2 big jugs, and I think I'm just now years later on my 2nd jug, so it really lasts a long time. I always just keep a couple sticks here to stir it. I always keep these 5-gallon, you guys have probably seen them in videos, these sitting here in my garden just to catch rainwater. That way if I ever need to water just a little something or mix some fertilizer, a lot of times these are at least half full for me to use. So let's see, what should we start with? You guys gave me a lot of things that you want to see, questions, things to update you on in the last garden update video where I was harvesting all my brassica greens. So since we're right here by the green bean trellis, let me give you a quick update on how the green beans are growing. As you can see, they're just starting to climb. I feel much later than I've ever been before in the year with green beans. And I'm not sure if it's, I'll have to look back at previous years, but I don't know if it's because I followed like the moon phase planting guide this year and didn't do my natural thing, or this is brand new territory. Nothing's ever grown here before. It's only ever been wood chips. So it could just be that the ground is not ideal for growing. Now I did put just bagged like raised bed garden soil mix in here to plant them in initially after I dug out the wood chips. But yeah, they're starting to climb. So this one's all the way up here. I feel like I have plenty of season left to go. You know, it's not even July yet, and our first frost isn't till middle October time frame. But I have some over there that are going rogue, so I need to get those tied up to the trellis. And yeah, I think I still have plenty of time. But my bush beans are another story. So I apologize for the wind. It's really windy out, so hopefully it's not bothering the microphone too much. But I want to start with this row and just give you an update. People were asking about, do you have carrots planted? How are you doing carrots this year? And I'm just super, super pleased with how this turned out. I've never done this before and it's worked great. But first, right here, I figured out what this is, guys. I'm almost positive. It hasn't quite opened yet. I'm pretty sure it's bachelor's buttons that self-seeded from last year. So they're just getting their flower heads on them now. But I have my 2 rows of tomatoes on the cattle panel trellis. And before I even planted my tomatoes, I knew what I wanted to do, and I sowed carrots down the middle. So let me take you in there and show you how it's looking. I'm gonna see if I can sneak in here without hurting anyone. Isn't that cool though? Isn't it beautiful? So I do have a couple random, oddly, the little thing down there flowering, I don't know if you can see it, is a giant red mustard that I can't get to. I did not plant that there. It's self-seeded from last year, I guess. And I have a couple blades of grass growing here and there. I'm not worried about that, but I planted these carrots. Let's see, it would have been when I got back from California after my birthday. So probably like April 12th around that time frame. So let's just pull one and see how they're doing. Oh yeah, they still got a long ways to go. But they look like they're growing well. So these probably need some good fertilizer in here. They will definitely gain the benefits of what I'm feeding the tomatoes with the Tomato Job's fertilizer stakes and that all-purpose fertilizer. But I could certainly come in here and give them just their own treatment of fish fertilizer. So they have quite a ways to go yet. I didn't throw that back in there. That's a perfectly good snack carrot. All right, so this is one section of carrots. I have a whole nother section of carrots that I planted first. Ooh, but looky here. I have my first golden cherry tomato just about to blush. So this is probably my happiest section of the garden. I just love how beautiful it is. So I started with my 2 oak barrels. I got a couple little pretty sunflowers just popping their heads in here. The echinacea just started to bloom. And of course we have all the borage our hearts could desire. This has been my favorite lettuce this year, and I didn't even plant it. It's Butter Crunch, and it's self-seeded from last year. A couple weeds. And then we have carrots down this row. The Dixondales that did survive right here. And bush beans behind them, ending with the garlic at the back. This row is about 7 feet wide, 22 feet long, and it is no dig, basically deep litter, deep mulch, lots of compost, lots of clippings from the yard every fall, and everything grows really, really well in here. So let's pull one of these carrots and let's see the difference just a few weeks makes. Oh, and I have lots of volunteer potatoes, baking potatoes growing in here. That's what this is right here. They are all through here because this is where I grew potatoes last year. Okay, so there is a carrot. That is just, I planted these either the very last weekend of March or first weekend of April before I went to California, and that's just a few weeks. So quite a drastic difference just a few weeks can make. So these are doing great. I'll give you a peek at some of the onions here. They're really bulbing up nicely. Now I will tell you I've been completely lazy with managing my onions this year. I did not top any of them. I haven't got out in here and spooned any. And it did, I mean, some of them are struggling, but not, for the most part, they're all doing well. Bush beans are just getting their flower heads, so pretty soon it's going to be bean picking time. And then the garlic is ready to harvest in like 2 weeks. I'm waiting for a good week dry spell just to let them dry out some before I harvest them, and we'll be harvesting the garlic. I forgot to mention I have my Geet pumpkin growing here, or Geet squash, and it has decided to use the garlic as a trellis. And I have my first little pumpkin. Can you guys see them right here? And then one right here. So I'm babying these because this is my only one that I have planted in the garden. It's that 800-year-old native pumpkin that was found in some cave or something like that, that one of you guys, I believe it's Greg or Steve, one of you sent us these seeds, and I'm babying it, watching for these flowers to open so I can make sure that they get pollinated, because I at least want one to save seeds from. So stay tuned, because this is going to be an awesome one to share with you guys. All right, let's stay right here for a second. This is the road, so you guys are actually sitting. This is garlic. You're sitting in the garlic right now. My peas, I've already done one big pea harvest. Let me show you these. These, somebody asked what variety they were. I didn't share the first harvest with you. I posted it on Instagram. And they are Mr. Big P from Haas Tools. And this one's not quite ready, but close. They get quite a few, like 8 to 10 pea pods. This is 10. So this one wasn't quite ready. But I've done one pea harvest. I did a terrible job on my trellis this year. I did a very lazy trellis. So they're all collapsing and it's very challenging to harvest. Let me try this one, see if this one's ready. Yeah, this one's nice. Nice big peas. Get out of the way. So I need to get it back out here. I'll probably do it after I close out the video with you guys and harvest these and put them up more. But this is my first year growing celery and it looks so good. I'm so excited I did it. Todd didn't even know I was growing this and we were out walking the garden last night and I was like, oh, by the way, if you need celery for cooking, don't buy it. I have celery growing right here and you can just come and harvest a stalk off of it. And he was like, what? You have celery? And he looked at it, he was so amazed. He started taking pictures of it. I'm like, yeah, so I think celery is gonna grow really good in my garden. And then behind me are all the peppers and they're looking fantastic. Lots of good growth, tons of baby peppers forming, and the pruning is just taking off as expected. So I just sprinkled on some bone meal and watering it in really well with the fish fertilizer. This is my straw bale that's really struggling, I think, for enough nourishment. And all I used on this straw bale, if you're new here, is barn clean out to charge them. And they took off really well at the beginning of the season, but now they've been struggling lately. You can tell the light color of green versus what you see behind me in the green of that straw bale and this one with the peppers. So definitely tells me that they're lacking in nitrogen and probably all the good stuff that they need. So I'm just pouring this in between the rows of the corn, and I do it probably every two weeks if I think about it. Corn is a super heavy nitrogen feeder. So this is my other Strawbale garden that is doing phenomenally, absolutely beautifully. Things are getting a little crowded, but I like it. We have yellow straight neck squash here, zucchini here. There's one baby zucchini on it, still growing. And sugar pie pumpkins down here. And the starts of baby sugar pies. And then right down here, let's see if I can bring you guys down. Here is my sad little struggling cucumbers. But there is a baby cucumber on it. So I think I'm just gonna be patient. It's been a really odd spring weather, and now that we're into summer, I think I'm just gonna be patient. But let's come over here and let's give you an update on the sweet potatoes. So I obviously didn't plant one here because there would have been something left over from my spring planting, and yeah, there's nothing there. Oh, yeah, here's the... He still has roots, but he just never grew, so I just don't think he's going to. I'll plant them back just to see. But the ones that I got from my subscriber to replace, they are doing great. They're really growing well. And yeah, I'll just do a quick pan. So I'm probably gonna have a much smaller harvest than I've ever had before. But that's okay. I mean, win some, you lose some, right? I don't show this bed much because it's just hodgepodge, but it's my salad greens. This is kale that has gone to seed for the second time because I've already cut it back once. And my extra tomatoes got thrown in here with basil and some melons and peppers. So I'm just cutting this back. It'll flower again, and the bees and all the pollinators will take advantage of it. And then eventually my hope is that I have some self-seeded kale for the fall. So I don't show my onions that much, but whew, you guys are way zoomed in. But I just sprinkled on some more ammonia sulfate. That's what I have on hand. I mean, you could use my blood meal too, but I found that the ammonia sulfate is just killer when it comes to fertilizing the onions. So I'm gonna water this in with the fish fertilizer, and that will be their feeding for the next 3 weeks or so. Okay, so this is my potatoes, and I don't know if you guys can see them in the video, but they are just starting to flower. So excited about that. I do have melons right at your feet and a few more sweet potatoes down here at this end of the bed. So for feeding today, I gave the melons some bone meal. I'll water them in with the fish fertilizer, and then I'll pour fish fertilizer between the rows of corn as well. Probably the last thing to update you on is this is my beet bed, and as you can see, it had kind of spotty germination early on. These are a couple collards that are getting eaten up. I just need to pull them out. Let's just do this now. They're in the way of my beets anyway. Maybe they'll send off new shoots for the fall. All right, so what I did recently in a video with you guys is I came back and I soaked my beet seeds first and planted them. And oh boy, did that. That was just the trick, I guess. I'm gonna have to thin significantly because there's way too many coming up in a single spot. But let me bring you guys down here, show you how that germination went, and show you some of the beets that I see forming. I'm really excited. Well guys, that's gonna wrap it up today. That is a almost 100% full garden tour. Of course, I didn't show you every single plant. Like I've got cucumbers, or excuse me, melons and more tomatoes growing against the fence line at the back. And I just need to wrap up with the final feeding of these carrots growing in between the tomato rows. And I'm pretty much done with garden maintenance for the next, significant feedings for the next 3 weeks or so. I'm not feeding the tomatoes at all right now. I know somebody asked that question. I did feed them at planting time, and then 3 weeks to 4 weeks later, I gave them the Job's tomato spikes, and that'll be all I do for them all season long. And then I guess the last question, somebody said that they were struggling with getting their carrots to germinate. And the main tip there is you have to keep the soil moist. It can't dry out until those seedlings pop. So there's tricks to that, you know. I've applied the trick once when I planted dead heat of the summer, but you can lay newspaper and cardboard, or newspaper and plywood, or newspaper and plastic on top when you first sow them, and try to give them a fighting chance to retain some of that moisture. But if you just come out here and you water lightly a couple times a day and then in the spring, it can take up to 21 days for carrot seeds to germinate. In the summer, 7 to 10 days, you should probably start seeing something pop. All right, I'll see you guys on the next video. Happy growing and gardening where you are.